Hello, welcome everyone to this session on how to be a standout candidate. It's just me on the line today from BookMachine, so I'd love to know that you can all hear me okay. If you could pop in the chat box to all panelists and attendees, you can hear me okay. Brilliant. Okay, I just need to know that. Amazing. Cool. So this has turned out to be a really popular session. We had 200 people registering for it, which is brilliant. It's also indicative of how many people are looking for jobs in the industry. So I'm Laura Summers. I co-founded BookMachine 10 years ago. And what I'm trying to do today is to be super positive so that you leave with ideas, practical things that you can do straight away, really. I'm not ignoring the fact that we are in a global pandemic and things are more difficult than they would normally be. I'm aware there'll be people who would have lost people, lost family members. It's not an easy time. I'm just going to try and be really positive because that is the goal of this session. So you'll come away inspired and ready. So I can see there's someone who can't hear their audio, but the majority of you can. So I'm just going to keep speaking, and I'm afraid it must be something at your end. So I think overall for your generation, things are a lot more diverse in terms of being able to get different work in the industry. So when I started in publishing, you got a job in the industry in a publishing house and someone trains you to do what you needed to do at work. Whereas now there are so many different options, from sort of online publishing to setting up your own things to building up your own profiles. And there's so many examples of people who've gone, the traditional route where you get a job and you get promoted and you keep going, but then who've also set up things on their own. So I'm going to make some assumptions today, but I'll assume that there'll be a combination. So a little bit about my background. Don't want to talk too much about myself. I started off as an English teacher and then worked at Pearson Education, which you probably know is the largest education publisher in the world. And I was there for a few years in editorial before moving into sales at Cengage Learning, then at Oxford University Press. And then I went to work for a much smaller company called iStudent Group, and we published international brochures for international education. And then UD Media, where we worked with publishers building apps and ebooks while setting up BookMachine at the same time. So lots of experience from huge publishers to, BookMachine was a one-man band initially. So have worn lots of hats and sort of have a good idea. So though I started off in editorial, I am quite salesy. I think I'm sort of most suited to sales and marketing. So some of the things I suggest might feel uncomfortable to people who are watching who are less inclined to put themselves out there. And that's fine, we're all different. But if you can take away 3 things from today and use those 3 things to feel more confident and position yourself as a candidate, then I think that's a success. So you've probably all seen this before. It was something which did the rounds before the pandemic. And I think we're sort of taught from school and the education system that your career is going to look like that, because often that's what our school careers look like, and university. And then really it looks something like that. Bit of a squiggle, anything can happen in the middle, and that's fine. And I think sometimes it can take a bit of adjusting to realise that it might not be the straight path, and there's sort of lots of alternative ways of doing things. So I'm going to make a few assumptions here about who's watching, and tell me if I'm wrong. I'll check the chat box in a moment. So I'm going to assume that you're educated skills, motivated, enthusiastic, and like reading books. I'm also going to assume that you'd like to work in-house at a publisher, and that you think that finding a job is going to be difficult because of COVID. Is there anyone? I'm just going into the chat box. Does anyone? Yeah, without COVID. Yeah, it's hard without COVID. That's a good point. Anyone wants and have I missed anything out there? Spot on. Anyone enlighten me? I haven't missed anything. Okay, pretty accurate. Brilliant. Cool. Okay, so I would just like to find out, just out of interest, I'm about to launch a poll, which area of industry you would like to work in. So if we could get a sense from everyone out there. If you can hear banging in the background, I have a child at home making noise. Wow, okay. So I'm going to end this poll here and I'm going to share the results. And as always, most people are interested in working in editorial, which is great. Obviously, editorial is really interesting. But I think this is indicative that sometimes we need to try other things, which I'll come to in a moment as well. If you haven't been able to participate in the poll, it just happens sometimes, I think, depending on your operating system. So I'm going to cover online communication, so how to stand out, different organizations to help you get started, and an action plan to help you secure a publishing job. So we're going to split the online communication into passive and active. This is just something I made up because I sort of spend a lot of time online, sort of speaking to different people who want to work in the industry. And I think there's a really clear distinction between how you are found, which is the passive, which is if someone were to Google you tomorrow, what they would come up with, and then the active, which is what you can do on a day-to-day, a week-to-week basis. So a lot of you know this, but if you're looking to work at a large publisher, they're not going to be looking you up online in this way, because there's often training schemes and programs in which they actually don't have that much information about you as they're selecting. It's often sort of aptitudes based. For a lot of smaller publishers or different sort of periphery, working around the peripheries, they will look you up online. I always, when someone's well, I'm always searching for people and finding out a little bit of information and who they are. And the first thing that always comes up when I search someone, and this is based on Google rankings, is their LinkedIn accounts. And I think a lot of people spend a lot of time on social media and then can forget about their LinkedIn. So just to get a sense of where you're at with this, I'd be interested to know how often you use LinkedIn. Okay, great, thank you. So occasionally, yeah, so it's being used. Some people are using it every day. I've recently started using it every day as well. It's a really useful tool. I think particularly because it ranks so highly in Google, so it's useful in itself for getting to know people, for learning new things, for staying in touch with people, all of those things. But I think it's really worth thinking about how you come across, so that if someone does put your name into a search engine at any point, if they do see your LinkedIn, that it's up to date. So I'm going to show you some LinkedIn profiles. I did a bit of research looking at different students and early career stage people who have LinkedIn profiles. I really apologize if anyone in this session, if I've used your example. I've avoided using names, and I hope you understand that I just needed real examples. So here's a couple of examples. I'd like to get into publishing, detail orientated, sort of all the typical things that you would say. And, you know, I read something like this and I think, great. But there's hundreds of these, hundreds and hundreds. And they're good. You know, there's no typos. It's obviously a starting point. You don't see any typos. But when I looked through those, there weren't any which really stood out. So I thought I would create one which really does stand out and share it with you, and you can just copy it. Again, it's quite salesy, and it might not be for your personality type. So I'll show it to you, and then I'll sort of talk about an alternative way of presenting yourself on LinkedIn as well. So ask a question and use some emojis, put some personality in. It's not just about you saying, this is who I am, this is what I do. You're actually selling yourself to help a company that you're going to work for. So you could say, this is me and this is what I do and I'm brilliant at this, but essentially flipping it round, you're showing, one, that you have a sense of how to actually write marketing copy and sales copy. So if you're a business and you're writing marketing copy or sales copy, you don't write about yourself all the time. You think about the person that you're selling to. So are you in the business of selling books? Are you looking for a hardworking, ambitious graduate to help you? So I think something like this would really stand out. If it doesn't feel right for you, if it feels too salesy and just not like the kind of thing you would write, I'd say an alternative would be to write a story. Because we're in the business of publishing, telling stories, writing books. And this is a really good opportunity. When I say write a story, I don't mean a really long story, but just to take who you are and what you do and just to write something a little bit different to, I am hardworking, I like reading books, I'm dependable, I've got these skills, because you won't stand out. And there's, it just doesn't show anything apart from that you're a suitable candidate. But there are hundreds of suitable candidates. And if you can win something, put a link to something you've won, even if it was quite a long time ago, that's always quite helpful. In terms of like your copy and how you come across and how you position yourself and what you're asking for, I confess I haven't actually read the book yet. So I've visited just some on Twitter as well, which I thought they were really good. I thought they were really, really clear. And there's sort of emojis, but it's just sort of thinking, what does this stand out? I actually think all of these are really good. So the book, which I think it's just out now, is Entry Level Boss. And what Alexa recommends, who has written this book, is that you get really specific in terms of defining what you want to do. And the reason you get really specific is, one, because it's great to have that focus. And I mean, obviously we don't all know exactly what we want to do, but if you know what your interests are, as specific as you can. So if I'm speaking to you and you say to me, I really want to work in publishing, and I say, oh great, I work in publishing too, and I say, what do you want to do? And you say, I'd really like to work in marketing. There's not that much I can do with that. If I know someone who's recruiting someone in marketing, great. But if you said to me, I really want to work in marketing, and I'm particularly interested in memoirs, I just love memoirs, and I know someone who's a non-fiction publisher who focuses on memoirs, instantly it creates a connection in my brain, and I know how I can help you because it's really specific. And I think there's definitely something to be said for, in a way, giving people something that allows them to help you. So with anything that you're putting out there, the more specific you are, the more people can help you because they can join the dots up for you. And it also makes you stand out a little bit more as well. So that's one approach. I mean, some people say to take any job that comes along, get yourself into the industry. I guess it depends on you and your situation. So I took the first publishing job I could because I needed a job, and it was fine. And I transitioned into what I wanted to do later. I think Alexa's approach is basically saying you should, hold strong in what you really want to do if you want to get the right position for you. Only you can make the call about that. But I think the idea of getting really specific and really granular could definitely help people to help you. And it's almost as if there's a publisher out there who has a missing piece, and then you're really specific, then it's more obvious that you would fit into that role than if you're saying, I can do marketing, I can do publicity, you know, whatever. Let me get involved. So we're moving on to, so everything I've spoken about so far is the passive side of things. So if someone's looking for you, what they would find. I'm now going to focus on what you can do proactively to help you to stand out. So reading and listening, that might not sound like it's something that's going to make you stand out, but actually what I mean by reading and listening is you're reading and you're listening because you're interested in the industry, and it's going to help you interview because you've got more up-to-date things to say. But you're reading for something specific, and you're reading to understand where the industry is and where you should put your focus. So if you're focusing right now at this point in history on what people are talking about e-commerce, selling direct to consumer, which is becoming increasingly important. They're talking about moving their meetings online. They're talking about running author events and conferences online, and everything becoming less London-centric. And these are all hot topics, of things for you to understand when you get to interview stage. But they also help you to decide where to focus. So it's sort of your responsibility to build up the skills in the area where they're going to be needed. I think we can't really assume that you're going to sort of walk into a job and say, yeah, we're going to train you to do everything. But if you have an understanding that actually what people need is really good online author events, for example, that then gives you an impetus to know where you can develop, what courses you can take, where you can get your own training. So for example, you could look at other industries and how they're managing their e-commerce, and learn a little bit about how that works, so that at the point that you do get to speak to an employer, rather than saying, can you teach me about how you do this, you're basically saying, yeah, I've seen you do this, and I've noticed that in this industry they do this, and I took a course on, you know, around development of this e-commerce, or just something that gives you a little bit of an edge, and it's clear that you have an understanding of where the publisher's pain points are and what they're looking to do. Similarly, you might follow bands. There might be, you know, music that you're really into, and you've sort of followed their journey and how they've transitioned into this world where essentially we're going to be online a lot more than we were previously. What have they done, and how could you apply that to publishing and try and match what you've read and where certain publishers in the industry might be having problems, and sort of be in a position where you can fill the gap. And it might feel like, you know, how can you sort of go in and do that? But you know, there's different software that you can run. I'm using Zoom, everyone uses Zoom, we've got total Zoom fatigue. So why not look at different software, how it works, and then run a few events with your friends or with your family, so that when you get to a point you can say, well, you know, Zoom's good, I've noticed you use Zoom, but I've also used this software and this software, and it doesn't even matter if it's in a work context or not. It's definitely, it just shows that you've got ideas, skills, and can offer something. I'm also, so I'm just looking at my thing. If you've got your own blog, which I'll come to in a moment, setting up affiliate links for purchases, so you sort of understand how Google affiliate links work, or with different tools, so that you can say, well, I've done this, I know how this works. And if you don't have the actual business experience, it doesn't matter, that you can create the experience. If you're lucky enough to have someone in your family who runs their own business, say to them, could I try some Google ads out, or would you let me run your Facebook campaigns for you? Or again, if you've got a friend who is starting something, just get involved as much as you can. So I think it's really important, and employers are always interested in what you've studied and your background, and that sort of solid educational experience is always important and really valid. And if you're at undergraduate level or at master's level, like, that's really useful, and it's going to make a huge difference. there's also other things that you can add to that to really give you that experience. I can see there's some questions coming in. I will get to the questions at the end. I think I'm going to talk till, what time are we? I'm going to talk till about past, I think, and then open up for some questions. So yeah, I think on the post consistently. So what does post consistently mean? So we've obviously got loads of different social channels. I wouldn't try and be everywhere for everything. I've seen people coming up through the industry who've chosen a channel and they've consistently focused there, they've posted, they've interacted, they've built up their skills. Some of you will know Books and Quills, a YouTuber who's just really built a name for herself. And I saw from the beginning, she just every single week, I think even like every other day, she was like posting videos, building up her community. And she's now in a position where she can teach publishers what to do. So not everyone's going to get to that level. But I'd say pick your area. Lots of people say, oh, if you're in publishing, you should be on Twitter. Maybe it's Twitter, maybe it's somewhere else. I have only logged into TikTok a couple of times. There could be opportunities there, but I'd say pick one place and do it really well. So as a statistic, we're here to sort of think about standing out. 90% of people are going online, they're going onto social and they're just viewing. 9% of people will comment or edit or interact, and then only 1% of people are creating. And I'll come to what creating, sort of how you can create later. So, creating being from a podcast to a blog, your own blog, or whatever medium you feel most comfortable in. But I'd say do it consistently, and yeah, I'll come to that in a moment. I think my third point is find inspiration. So there'll be people out there, and they just come across really well, and they stand out, and they just have a way with words. And I'd say find those people, have lists of them. You're not going to copy them exactly because you're not them, you're your own person. But look at what they're doing and how they communicate and take the best of it and think, how can you apply that to who you are? Obviously make your own mark in the world. But I think it's really important to have inspiration, and people who seem to know what they're doing, and tap in regularly, try to build up a relationship with them, whether it's online, whether you can get a video call, I don't know. But I definitely say sort of keep that in front of your mind. And then my fourth point here, in terms of sort of what you can actively do, is to be helpful. So I think when we're in a situation where we, really want to find work, and, if you've studied hard for a long time or you've been looking for a job for a very long time, it can be quite disheartening, and you can get to a point where you just like, someone help me get this. But actually the very best thing you can do is to be helpful. So helping people around you. So if you hear of a job opportunity, you might all be doing this anyway, and it's more suitable for someone else, and you just tell them about it, because all these things come around. And I've just read a really good book called Lift as You Climb, which talks about sort of career progression and moving on. And actually no one wants to rise and get promotions and move on without everyone else around them having that experience as well. So I'd say be helpful, but also if you see anyone online asking for help, and there's a way that you think you can help them, do it. I'm not talking about working for free here. I'm saying, if someone's asking something that you have the answer to, just be as helpful as you can. Or if you see something in one place and you realize that could apply to somewhere else, or sort of introducing people to each other, just, I think, spend more of your time being helpful than asking people to help you. It's just will help more in the long run. And then when opportunities arise, then people will know that you're there and come back to you, and won't think, oh, it's that person who's always, sort of asking me for a job or whatever it is. So I'm going to talk through a bit of a plan. we were going to do this more as a workshop, so we'd all be able to see each other and break away and have little conversations and things. But then when we had 200 people registering, I realized it might be a bit complicated. So I can't see any of you, but I hope this is hitting the spot and useful so far. And we'll get to questions in a moment. So before a planner, we're going to look at different organizations who can help you to get started. So different things that you can tap into. So there's, on the left, I've listed traditional companies. You might have heard of all of these or none of these, depends on where you are and what you're doing. So the Bookseller and Book Brunch, they are leading the news within the industry. So when I've spoken about reading and keeping abreast of everything, I'll check in with both of those sites every single day and just see the latest of what's going on. There's also dedicated groups to different areas of the industry. So BMS is the Book Marketing Society, and then Publicity Circle is for publicists. They run events, they have a membership, they share things online which are really relevant. So if you're looking at marketing or publicity, I'd definitely check them out. Same with the Children's Book Circle. I'm a little bit out of touch with them, but I understand that they run events which I presume are back online again, and everything to do with the world of children. They also run awards and have sort of relevant contacts on their site, so worth contacting them. Publishers Association are the main body, and they have training and links and endless amounts of sort of resources for you to dip into. Some are just for members, but some are for anyone who sort of lands on their site. And Book Careers is led by a lovely lady called Suzanne Collier, and she is trained in careers counselling. So lots of people go to her if they need help getting set up. She runs sort of lots of CV clinics and sort of services to help people get on their way. And then the Society of Young Publishers, really good networking organisation. BIC is an organisation for people working in production. I'd definitely check out what they're doing. They're running lots of free webinars at the moment. You can learn a lot from there. And then CIEP, that used to be the Society for Freelancers and Editors and Proofreaders. So if you're looking at working in editorial, they do focus in, I think you get the sense when you go to their sites that it's for freelancers, but actually they support people working in editorial, both in-house and freelance throughout their careers. And they run lots of training courses as well. And anything which is accredited by them on the editorial side of things is tends to be sort of very well respected. I realise I've forgotten to put recruiters, so Inspired Selection, Atwood Tate and Redwood Recruitment. I'd sign up to all of those as well. BookMachine, I can't not mention our own organisation. So we run loads of events, training courses, there's a membership, you can get involved, talk to people. It's a really sort of bustling community for people in the industry. We do focus on people with about 10 years experience in their career. That's sort of where we're focusing our content on. But there's loads to learn and people to talk to, and I definitely get involved. And then the IPG, Independent Publishers Guild, also follow them, get involved, join if you can. They've actually got a conference today, which I've been at, and it's amazing. Like I couldn't quite imagine what a conference would be like online, but you can go into all these different rooms and there's a foyer and you can chat to people and you can sort of go to all the different exhibitor stands and speak. It's really, really well done. These on the right, these are sort of other sites that I've come across. So the Publishing Blog on Twitter is really useful guide to, they post jobs and just sort of general tips and hints about getting into the industry. Definitely follow them. Publishing Insight is a podcast, and Flavia, who runs it, interviews lots of people in the industry, and if you like podcasts, get involved. Books and Quills, I mentioned before, follow her on YouTube. It's phenomenal what she's achieved, just through loving books and hard work, and she's really built, I've watched her build a name for herself in the industry, so I think she's definitely one of those inspiring people to watch. And then Pod Squad Books, if you're interested in production, I'll definitely follow that account on Instagram, because they're really focusing on what people in production need, or even if you don't want to work in production, definitely worth checking out. So your plan, what are we going to do? Your action plan. So first of all, I think it's about lining everything up. That's a picture of me. I think it's worth having really good photo shots, because everything is so visual online. I mean, it doesn't need to be a professional photographer, but sometimes you see people's photos online and they've got like a beer, or a beer's just been cut off and they've got their girlfriend under their arm or something, and it's like a clear shot of you, as maybe something a bit bookish. Get that set up. I definitely work on your LinkedIn profile and the copy and how it comes across. And just remember that there are lots of people who are very articulate, love books, have a brilliant, history, and just think, how can I stand out? And then just think a little bit about your goals as well. I think it's quite easy to say I want to work in publishing, but just to sit down and say, this is what I want to do. If you don't know what that is, then write what do you like doing as a person, and then start to think about how that might manifest itself in a job. So if you can specifically put down for yourself what you want to do, I think that's really helpful. And if not, who are you? What do you like doing? And then use that as your starting point. So that's the first stage. This slide is to show you sort of what you should be doing daily. So that's obviously a copy of a bookseller. So what every single day, keep on top of what's going on. Things do actually, I know people say that the publishing industry moves slowly, but the news moves quickly. There's lots going on. Just try and read as much as possible, so that when you do get into those conversations, so you've got as much industry knowledge as possible, to, even if someone, you ask someone what they've read recently and they say something and something about that author is now launching the next title, just sort of having that toolkit of information about the industry is really useful, and also will help you to decide what skills are going to help you. That Instagram logo is just basically say, pick a channel or pick 2 channels, and just focus on communicating with people, being present, contributing as much as possible. And 60 minutes is, you shouldn't really spend more than an hour a day on social media. So, I mean, obviously, in your social life, your own life, whatever you want, but in terms of like thinking about your career and networking and generally putting yourself out there, I don't think spending more than an hour will benefit you at all. So I tend to spend about half an hour in the morning, half an hour later on in the day, and that's it. That's fine. So this slide is about creating content. So whatever you decide to do, whether it's a podcast or something on YouTube or a blog, I mean, blogs like a really straightforward way of whichever area of industry you work in, just having a place where you can drive people to say, this is who I am, this is what I'm interested in, this is how I write, all of those sorts of things. I'd say weekly, if you can consistently keep something up and post or share once a week, that's sort of a good level of just, and I think it's not only about what happens if someone lands there and finds out about you and your writing, but it's also a discipline. So every time you're writing, you're getting better at writing. Every time that you're recording a podcast, you will be improving in that. So if you task yourself on doing it weekly, within, and hopefully it won't take too long, but within 3 to 6 months, you're going to have like a really solid skill set there. So the regularity is about showing that you're doing things, but then also from your own skills basis. So that is an overview of the plan, which I think I've covered everything. So getting started, what to do daily, what to do weekly, and monthly as well. So I can see there's questions in the Q&A and there's comments that I've missed. So, right, so I'll start with the questions in the chat, and then I'll go to the questions in the Q&A. So what are important things we should be updating on it? Sorry, I didn't get the question at the time that I was talking. Would you recommend premium for job seekers? So that's a really interesting question, because I don't know why, but LinkedIn asked me the other week if I wanted to upgrade, and it was free. They're like, we can do a month's trial, and I wasn't sure of the points, whether it would benefit. But the best thing I've found personally is that LinkedIn Learning is brilliant. So I upgraded, went onto LinkedIn Learning, saw this course about pitching, and I just watched it. It was only about 10 minutes long or something. And this one course, there was a few lessons in there that have actually changed my life. So I think LinkedIn Learning is good. And it's a difficult one, because I appreciate being able to see who's looked at my profile, because I'm running a business and I'm growing a business, and I just want to know who's looking at my profile. It is useful to know, and I think you only get that with a premium account. So I think there's benefits, but it is quite expensive. And yeah, my answer is no. But if you get an offer for a free trial, do it and soak up lots of LinkedIn Learning. Cool. So Clara says that she's read the book. Brilliant. So I haven't read the book. Is it worth becoming a member of the CIEP? Yeah, I think so. If you're a BookMachine member, you get a discount on CIEP and vice versa. I think they do good training courses. I don't know if you have to be a member to take those courses, but they're very well respected. People are often saying, oh, it was accredited by them. So if you're definitely looking to work in editorial, you've really got your heart set on it, I think it will make you stand out. Recommendation for Louise Harmby: is there any organisation dedicated to rights? So yes, there is. One of our members it's called Rights to. Right, if you search for Rights to Geeks on Twitter, and they run meetups for people working in rights, and they have really good numbers. I did in person, I assume they do online. So yes, I'd speak to Ruth at Rights Professionals. It's Rights to Geeks on Twitter, and definitely get involved. I've got a really good community of people working in rights. And what was the name of the pitching LinkedIn Learning course, says Zola. I don't know, Zola, if you could email me afterwards, I'll find it and I'll send you the link. And we're running a course on pitching too, but I can send you everything if you email me. And would you put any courses you do on LinkedIn Learning on your CV? Yes, put everything you learn on your CV, every course, wherever you take it. Definitely, 100%. Good point. Yeah, if you're a student, you might have LinkedIn Learning for free. More information about CIEP. Claire Hodder and Ruth Tellis, thank you for my brain going fuzzy. Brilliant. Okay, so then we've got more. Wow, we've got loads of questions up here as well. So would you recommend doing this in CV about me sections too? Would I recommend doing an about me section on a CV as well? I think so. It'll make you stand out. Anything that is just not your you need to answer the question of the brief. So if someone's looking for something specific, you don't want to lose the thread of what they're looking for. But I think if you can do something creative in the format of your CV, definitely. I've got a question: for any advice for cold pitching yourself to people? I think cold pitching is difficult. If you've got the skill to do that, that's amazing. I'd always find something that you'd done in common. So if you know that they've been at an event you've been to, or if you hear them, so say for example, you hear someone talking, there's so many online events at the moment. If you sign up to an online event, you hear someone really inspiring, then use that as a springboard for saying, I really enjoyed your talk. I think always bring it to, you have to find some points in common. So whether it's, if you see that you both know someone in common, or you've read something in common, or you've heard what they do. So I'd say my advice is go for it. I mean, back in the day, you would pick up the phone. You can't really do that at the moment. So via email or social. But yeah, just finding something that they've done and giving them a bit of a pat on the back for it. So you enjoyed their X, or you read their article on this, and use that as a starting point to suck up and then pitch yourself after that. So someone living in Dorset, would you say the pandemic and how work has evolved will make it easier to work remotely in the future? Yes, definitely. It was really hard for so many companies to let people go and work from home, because there was this unrealistic, it's not true, but this sort of perception that people working from home, that they weren't doing their jobs properly, or that they would mess around, or they'd stay in their pajamas, or they'd not be at their desk. Whereas what the pandemic has done is proven, and I've heard this again and again and again, that you can get your work done at home. I have not spoken to one person, I speak to a lot of people, who has said people aren't working at home. There's people who have young children and who are struggling to get things done. That's different. This is a global pandemic. But in terms of work ethos, I think this is really proven that businesses can operate, and it gives lots of promise for people working all over the country that things are going to become less centralized. And also, just generally, I think people are going to be less enthusiastic to live in a crowded city after this experience, because one of the reasons that people come here for work, but they also come here because it's fun, and a lot of the fun things like going to a theatre, going to a cinema, that's all going to slow down for quite a while. So I think the whole publishing and everything in London model is definitely going to decrease, and it's going to give a lot more opportunities to everyone everywhere. How do you recommend best publicizing your personal accounts or websites? I think just having a really solid, it's a good question. So I think because I work in marketing, I sort of do this stuff, I've been doing it automatically for such a long time. So sorry if I'm missing anything out, but I just have an account on a social media platform, have everything set up, and then just make sure that your links are really clear. And also just making sure there's consistency. So if you're describing yourself as something on LinkedIn, then when you go to Twitter, you have to be the same person. So obviously you change the way that you interact, you change you've got more space or less space, but just giving it sort of an overview of having consistency across the board. So I hope that answers that question. In terms of creating a blog, do you still think it's valuable to link to a blog that isn't to do with publishing or the industry? I think it's still valuable to link to a blog that isn't. Oh, right. Okay. Definitely. Your blog definitely doesn't have to be about the industry. If you've written well, or you've got great images and great visuals, and you've shown that you can build a site, it definitely doesn't have to be about the industry. And I apologize if I've implied that it needs to be about the industry. It doesn't. It can be this is something I've created me. So how do you make yourself stand out in applications that are online? Do you, when applying for a position that asks you to answer this question? Yeah, it's a good question. So how do you stand out in an online application when they ask you a series of questions rather than something conventional? I think by doing what I suggested, which is to keep really abreast of the news and what's happening, it will show through in your answers. You will just have a depth of knowledge in your answers that will make you stand out. And obviously answering the question, understanding who you're talking to. So going to the publisher's website, going through all of their social, having a really deep understanding of who the publisher is from your research. But I really think by doing that regular reading, you, without even knowing, you'll be able to position yourself better than someone who hasn't done that research and isn't really tapped in. Someone here said they had a LinkedIn premium for a month and it was really expensive to keep, but you did some of the courses. So yeah. Do I think that having a personally run blog will make a sizable difference in employability, or is a consistently updated profile on a website such as Medium just as useful? Yeah, probably just as useful. If it's showcasing your skills, then yeah, that's great. That'd be fine as well. So if I have a YouTube channel and Twitter dedicated to books, should I push it hard when talking about my experience, even if I have a small following? Yes. And a lot of employers say they want to see our passion for books. Do you think talking about BookTube is a sufficient way to show that? I don't think it's a sufficient way to show that you have a passion for books. I think everyone who's here now watching and listening has a passion for books. So I'd be careful with the passion for books. Even if you're hearing that from recruiters, I think most people will start off anything saying, I really like books, which is why we're all here. So I think, and I definitely don't think a small following is a problem at all. Again, sort of going back to before and the things I've talked about, I was on a session the other week and someone said, oh, there isn't any point doing something unless you have 150,000 followers or something crazy like that. And I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, if you've got a niche audience and you're not a multinational, you're an individual looking for a job. So if you have an audience of people who like and follow you and interact with you, that's fine. And that could be 20, 30, 40 people. It's not about, I don't think it's about, obviously, if you're looking to work in marketing, then yes, having a huge following is an indicator that you know how to create a big marketing. But if you're not looking to work in marketing, if you're looking to work in editorial production, I think being out there and being present and not having that fear of having to have huge numbers is fine. And yeah, I wouldn't obsess over it. But if you find yourself doing something that you enjoy, that you're getting traction and it's working, then keep up that regularity, keep on top of it. And yeah, I hope that answers that. I'm looking to pursue a career in children's editorial. What skills would be useful for me to learn during lockdown which would make my CV stand out? I would actually go and have a look at the Children's Book Circle and see what they're talking about. I don't have a background in children's. I think, as with everything, it's really understanding the market and what books parents are buying, should buy, and what trends there are, what's important in children's publishing. But in terms of like an editorial role in children's, I can't really say. But yeah, I think a lot of what I've said is relevant for that. Do you think for a non-native speaker it's significantly more difficult? No. Or mature candidates? No, I don't. It definitely shouldn't be. I know lots of non-native speakers who have really good publishing careers, and yeah, I think if your language skills are good, it shouldn't hold you back as well. I would never ever think of that as a negative as well. I mean, if you're struggling with areas of grammar and you want to work in editorial, then that's probably not a good fit. But equally, like when I was in editorial at Pearson, what was really important was understanding, like, obviously your editorial skills, but also understanding different markets. And publishing is like a global business, and no, it shouldn't hold you back at all. I've got a couple of questions here about working, about MAs. Looking into MAs. Yeah, I think there's people here who've done MAs, there's people who haven't done MAs, there's a whole, I meet lots of people who have done MAs and they have a really, really good understanding of the industry, and they just can get the bigger picture a lot faster, and that can really help them in lots of ways. And then there's other people who don't have MAs and are brilliant writers and just have the right things at the right time. So I think it will help for certain jobs, and if you're in a position to take one, and particularly now when the job market is slowing down a little bit, so yeah, go for it. So there are so many questions here. I'm actually going to wrap up now. Thank you all so much for joining. There'll be a recording of this. We have lots on the site around skills, but really I hope that some of the other companies that I've recommended as well really sort of specialise in entry-level candidates and ways into the industry will be able to help as well. If anyone's got any questions, it's just my final quote. So drop me a line if there's anything I can do to help. I would love to help you. Everything we do is about bringing people together in publishing at whatever level. So everything we're creating is aimed at, mid-level, so it's sort of quite experienced people. But if anyone needs any help with anything at all, just drop me a line. And good luck, and hope to meet you on your journey. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.